Hi, this is Tamsen Granger.
And this is Dan Abuhoff.
With Tamsen and Dan read the paper on Sunday, December 8th, 2019. Belated happy birthday to my brother Bryce.
Happy birthday, Bryce.
Yeah. He was having his birthday December 5th.
Okay, good. Congratulations.
So here we are. In the thick of it.
It feels like it's practically Christmas. But
it's been very cold. And we had some snow since last we spoke.
Somebody jumping the season. I don't know. But we're totally into it. So
we're into it?
We're going along with the crowd. And just to show that, we went last night to see a production of A Christmas Carol at Music Mountain Theater.
Yes, it was at the invitation of our buddies Mark and Dixon.
That's right.
They talked us into it.
We can't refuse such an invitation.
And we had a great time.
We did. It was a revelation.
Yes, it's a local theater.
Yeah.
Community theater.
In Lambertville. Again, Music Mountain Theater.
Right. Not for profit.
Right. Well, not for profit, that doesn't, a lot of theaters are not for profit, but this really is community theater.
Even the ones who are trying to be for profit.
Right. Yeah, but, well, whatever. But it's hard to tell them apart. But what makes this different is that this is local people performing. There are people who have real jobs. I mean, you saw in the little notes in the program about, you say, well, you may recognize me as the barista at blankety blank. That's what they are, and a lot of young people too. And it was, first of all, the production. It was very good. It was really good.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's number one.
Yes.
That means a lot, because we wouldn't be talking about this if we went to some theater that was regional. It wasn't worth going to. But it was.
There's a difference between regional theater and community theater.
All right, you're right.
Okay.
Let's call it community
theater is
regional
theater.
This is community theater. But I enjoyed this as much as many things I've seen at McCarter and many things I've seen in New York.
Have you ever been to community theater before?
I have a million years ago, when I was probably under 10 years old. I saw a production of The Pajama Game. I can't tell you what the theater was exactly, but I was flabbergasted. I was overwhelmed by it.
Was this in Long Island?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we went to we had a local group.
Yeah.
I lived in Kensington, Maryland, and we had the Kengar Players, which was a combination of a couple different towns.
Right.
And they performed in an old armory in town. And my parents were subscribers.
And how was it?
And I always thought it was great. They did all the usual stuff, like Agatha Christie, etc. And if my parents didn't feel like going, or they thought it was a really good production that we should see, I would end up going.
Look, this is amazing. Let me tell you why it's amazing. First of all, this was a musical. We had no idea what we were going to see. This turns out to be a musical version of A Christmas Carol. There have been a few different musical versions. The one we're most familiar with is Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol, which was done in 1962 and was written by Jules Stein, who is serious business. I mean, Jules Stein wrote Gypsy, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Funny Girl.
Well, and it is the best.
It's super. It is a great, super. But it's not performed much because it was performed by cartoon characters, so people don't cotton to it too terribly much.
I remember when videotapes first came out.
Yeah.
Very early on. I was still in college.
And the first thing you videotaped?
I went home for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I found a local store that rented videotape machines and the videotapes. And I rented both, trucked them to my parents' house, and we got to see Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol. Because sometimes it was replayed over the years, but you couldn't always guarantee that. And my whole family loved it. Now
look, that's a classic. So we're watching this as a musical last night, and I'm saying, what is this? And it turns out it is the version of Christmas Carol that was performed beginning in 1994. I think in 1994 at Madison Square Garden. Mm-hmm. They had their what was called the Paramount Theater or the Felt Forum. It's not the big 15,000 foot arena, 15,000 seat arena. It's something less. It's an auditorium.
Yeah.
And but they had a Christmas show, and this is what it was. And they performed this for about 10 years. And this too is serious business. I mean, it's done by real pros. It's written by Alan Menken does the music, and Lynn Ahrens does the words. Now, Alan Menken, I know you know, wrote all the Disney stuff, right? So Alan Menken did, Alan Menken did Little Mermaid, wrote the music for Little Mermaid, for Beauty and the Beast, for Aladdin, for Pocahontas, etc., etc. Before that, he was on Broadway. He wrote Little Shop of Horrors. As a matter of fact, one of the story of Alan Menken is he was sort of struggling doing mediocre. Little Shop of Horrors being a good example on Broadway, and someone said, why knock yourself out? Go out to the West Coast, make some money. And that's what happened to him. But he's obviously a very talented guy. And the words, the words of the Disney stuff was by Howard Ashman, so it was Menken and Ashman. But this was with Lynn Ahrens. Lynn Ahrens did the words. Now, Lynn Ahrens has her own great accomplishments. Lynn Ahrens, mostly known for Ragtime. Now, she wrote after that. Interestingly, Menken was already well known when he wrote this in 94. Ragtime was written later in 98, so she became big later on. And she was writing with Stephen Flaherty. Lynn Ahrens is, you may remember, she was sitting right next to us at Studio 54 when we were there, when they did that.
Oh, right.
Yes,
right,
that was Lynn
yeah.
Ahrens. But these are pros. And the songs are real songs.
Right.
And so it's a very nice production. I'm not saying it's mining the depths of A Christmas Carol from a literary point of view, but it's hard to really complain about it. It's not totally superficial. And interestingly, when you think, at least when I think, and here I'll use the phrase regional theater. When I think regional theater, nonprofit theater, as you put it a moment ago, I say, well, they're worried about expenses. The production's going to be spare. They're going to have to be clever. Apparently, when it comes to community theater, not so much, because everybody wants to be in the act. So you were overwhelmed with the cast members here. What are there, 25 cast members? They were all over the place.
Plus, it was done, the production itself was done in kind of, I would say, old-time British music hall ambiance.
Right.
So the costumes were quite over the top.
Right.
The wigs were over the top. The dancing was over the top.
Right.
And I think that was all on purpose.
But there were costumes and wigs, which kind of amazed me too.
Yeah.
And there were real sets. And it was kind of cleverly done.
But they were also verged on wacky in a lot of ways, which made it a lot of fun. It moved along tremendously. Yeah. You didn't have a moment to get bored or say, wait a minute, I know what's happening now. So it was a lot of fun. It doesn't have the poignance of, the real story.
No, but it's amusing.
But
right.
It was
the wackiest scene, of course, was the Rockettes scene. In the middle of it, they have 6 or 7 dancers dressed up as Rockettes that do sort of a number.
The wackiest scene was the Night of the Living Dead scene, where they're a bunch of zombies kind of dancing around the graveyard. But
you'll be interesting to know that that's exactly the way it was done in Madison Square Garden.
Uh-huh.
That scene now, I don't know if the Rockettes scene was that way.
With hoverboards?
I can't say about hoverboards. But in any event, you can find it on film because the Hallmark people bought the rights to this in 2004 when the run ended and filmed it. So, and it was one of those celebrity things in Madison Square Garden, like who was going to play Scrooge, right? So one year it was Tony Randall, another was Roddy McDowall, F. Murray Abraham, Frank Langella. Each year another name would play Scrooge. It was the kind of, holiday thing. So it wasn't a real Broadway show, but it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And they did a great job with it. It was a tremendous amount of fun. It wasn't like the audience was just filled with kids. It wasn't a child show. You could bring children, but it certainly was pitched to adults. The theater was very nice. We were estimating it seats about 250 people. And they do
Let's hear it for community theater. Now,
they do a lot of real shows.
They do a lot of real shows. In fact, next year, Music Mountain Theater is doing Into the Woods, Matilda, Legally Blonde, Anything Goes, American Idiot, Drowsy Chaperone.
It's crazy.
Lots of fun things. This is the thing.
Yeah.
You can go to these. The top ticket price is $25.
Right.
Okay. A senior rate is about $22.
Oh, you can get that in a few years.
Yeah, and you can get like a 10-show pass for $230. Okay. The point is, it's a lot of fun to be had, for not that much money.
But how can they do it? I'm looking at these shows. These are not the simplest shows in the world to do, and plus you have to pay something to get the rights. I guess maybe as a community theater you pay less. But to put on these shows, I can tell you, I know a little bit about the economics of things. It's unthinkable that you can do 10 real shows in a year.
So hats off to them.
Well, we'll see. I mean, anyway, it was, as I said, a revelation. A revelation.
Yeah, we had a great time.
There are probably, we learned this. Maybe we knew this anyway.
Also, we went with Mark, who, is part of the music community in the area.
He's a pro.
So he could point out people to us and tell us little backstories, etc. So that was fun.
There are a lot of talented people out there. They're not all doing this for a living.
Really? There are a lot of talented people?
I forget that every once in a while. But apparently that is the case. I was reminded yesterday, and this is a great resource. I'll be looking into it. So that was great. That was last night. But, then that wasn't everything we did this week. On Thursday, we were at Roundabout for the Rose Tattoo.
Well, we were at the American Airlines Theater.
Roundabouts.
We were at a Roundabout production.
Yes, sure.
So Tennessee Williams.
Well, first of all, let me frame it this way, but I know I'm going to end up agreeing with you. In the write-up in the playbill, where they're always going to be very positive.
Really?
Yes.
In the playbill?
They say it's a production, it's one of the great heroines in one of the great plays by one of the greatest playwrights in the history of American theater. And it is none of those things. None of those.
Now, it's starring Marisa Tomei.
She's very good.
We do love her.
Yes.
I love her.
Yeah.
I don't know if you love her. I love her.
Do you remember?
She did a very good performance. No doubt about that.
Did you remember John Gambling talking about Marisa Tomei?
No.
John Gambling was friends with Marisa Tomei's mother. And apparently he was at some production, some nonprofit production before she was famous. Before
is that Olympia Dukakis?
I don't think it's the mother. I don't think so. But before
that's a different story, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. But this is before My Cousin Vinny, before she was famous.
Okay.
And he was at something where she was literally an usher. Marisa Tomei was dressed up as an usher. But making believe she was an usher from 1930s. And he was saying, oh, my friend so-and-so daughter, Marisa Tomei, was so cute and so whatever, and she's going to be an actress. Yeah. Worked out for her.
And she did become an actress.
She's quite a big star. And she's very good in this. The story, though, is it dated or was it never that interesting? What do you think?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, the story is it's a woman who's living in, I guess, South Carolina. Did I get that right?
No, Florida.
Florida, okay. Florida, I should have known by the flamingos. Very nice set. And, but she's Italian and Sicilian, as she reminds us every few minutes. She's very much in love with her husband. And her husband meets an untimely end, and she is overwhelmed with grief, so much so she can't function, and she can't really deal intelligently with her teenage daughter, and it's kind of undermining her life. And the question is how she's dealing with this, how she deals with things that she learns after the fact about her husband and make him less than sterling, and how she deals in particular with meeting another man who arrives in the form of a truck driver, as her husband was, who stops by accident.
Basically, it's the first guy who comes to the house. Well, the second guy. There's the door-to-door salesman comes and then gets chased away by this truck driver.
Right. Who overwhelms her.
Overwhelms her.
She's very sensuous, and he appeals to her on that level. And that seems to solve a lot of problems for her, psychologically. Yeah. So, there's nothing wrong with the story, except that it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And Marisa Tomei imbues a lot more life in it than you would think possible. It is what they intended to be. They did a production of this in Williamstown in 2016, so it's not like they just threw the pieces together and let's see what happens. It's directed by Trip Coleman, who directed Choir Boy. So it's not like you have a director who doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
It is what they want it to be.
Yeah.
Which in my mind is not too very much. And I don't remember reading a lot of reviews. I read the Times review, which was not positive, except for Marisa Tomei.
Well, there was a lot of music in this. Was there music in the original?
That I don't know. Can't tell you that. But let me tell you this about the original that I found interesting. It was done on Broadway with Maureen Stapleton, which seems an odd choice in many ways.
It's just hard to imagine.
A million years ago. It was written in 1951. Well, here's how that happened. Tennessee Williams loved Anna Magnani, and Anna Magnani, a great Italian actress, mostly film, and wrote it for her, asked her to do it on Broadway, and she said, I can't do it. My English is not good enough. Wouldn't do it. And then he fell back into Maureen Stapleton, who was fine, did it with Eli Wallach. 1955, they made a movie. And by that point, he had persuaded Anna Magnani to play the part for the purpose of the movie. She did, and she won Best Actress from the Academy Awards, the first foreign-born actress to win Best Actress. So it was quite a thing. She was a great actress.
But I can't get over Maureen Stapleton and Eli Wallach as an irresistible.
Well, she's as irresistible,
muscular young truck driver. Yeah,
he's as irresistible as she is sensuous. How about that? Can we settle on that?
No, I don't know. I'd have to. I guess I ought to see it to believe it.
There's nothing to see. The movie has Anna Magnani, who is a force of nature. She must have been quite good.
But I'm sure she wasn't born looking like an older battle axe.
Who are we talking about now?
Maureen Stapleton.
Forget Maureen Stapleton. The only person you can see is Anna Magnani. Is the only person you can see.
So anyway, that by now is actually closed.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what our recommendation is.
Yes, forget it. We're not hurting anybody. So you had an article about the history of Christmas lights.
Yes. Well, Christmas lights are near and dear to us because our buddy Dixon is a Christmas light enthusiast par excellence. And so...
Can I give away his secret?
No.
Okay.
No. He has his secrets. He has professional secrets. Okay?
All right, fine.
Anyway, in the Wall Street Journal, under Historically Speaking, Amanda Foreman gives us the whole story. So you may realize that Thomas Edison invented the electric light bulb. The first fully functional one was 1879.
Yeah.
The following year, he strung up some lights outside his Menlo Park factory, partly in good cheer, to spread good cheer at Christmas time, but partly to advertise the lights, right?
Right.
Meanwhile, his partner, Edward H. Johnson, put up a little Christmas tree, I think, was it in the window, on a revolving turntable in his window in Manhattan. Okay. And so it delighted people so much, it got bigger and bigger every year. This helped galvanize the whole sport of competitive Christmas lighting. One of the first big competitors to Edward Johnson was President Grover Cleveland, who in 1894 erected an enormous multi-light Christmas tree in the White House. So at this point, light bulbs were way too expensive for just anybody to use. So this took a while. But fortunately, other people were inspired to create community tree lighting. First one in Manhattan was on December 24th, 1912 in Madison Square Park. But of course we know, and Armand knows, that the very first community tree lighting ceremony was in Percy, Pennsylvania, in 1909.
Yes, I'm sure he remembers that.
It's in the Guinness Book of World Records or something. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's not, commercial Christmas lights don't really become available. Wait a minute. Outdoor Christmas tree lights don't become commercially available until 1927. So it takes a while. But from then on, they're off to the races.
Okay. All right. Yes, we'll have to have Dixon on to talk about his approach to Christmas lights. He's the expert.
Isn't that sort of a visual?
Yes, I guess it is. All right, so here's something that comes with Christmas that isn't necessarily a positive, but it's the way business works. All these packages that are delivered for Christmas by FedEx, Amazon type stuff, that sort of thing. Turns out a lot of them are stolen.
Yes, we know that.
Well,
almost every night on the news, if you watch TV news,
let me give you some numbers.
They have the latest, robbery.
Let me give you some numbers before you tell me what you know. Okay, 90,000 packages a day go missing. Now you're going to say in the United States it's a big place, 90,000 is not a big deal, right? That's what you're thinking, right?
No, I think that sounds like a lot.
Except for one thing, that's just New York City.
90,000
in New York City.
Well, because no one has a place to put their packages.
In the nation, 1.7 million packages a day go missing. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a lot of packages.
I get it.
And
so what's the solution?
Well,
mastermind.
Well, first of all, let me give you a little context. So 15% of all deliveries, they estimate, in urban areas go missing. And so what the solution is, people have different solutions like video doorbells or the like, and working out with their doorman. But the fact of the matter is not everyone has an ideal scenario. So you have someone starting a business here, which is called Pickups Technologies. And it's not the only business around, but it's sort of an Uber type thing. It sort of matches requests for people to accept the packages to people who are offering to accept packages at various locales and matching them up.
This is how you do it. This is how you do it.
All right.
You have an older person in your building.
Yes.
They've got nothing to do.
They have examples of that.
They receive the packages.
All
right?
There's such a person.
Zeke and Noah used to do that, I think, in their...
They do have an example, a woman named Miriam Cruz in East Harlem in her building, who's known as Ma, accepts packages for everybody, refuses to take payment. But not everybody has Ma Miriam Cruz in their building,
right.
And they're kind of left to their own devices.
I smell retirement job.
Well, yes.
Now we just got to move to an apartment building.
And the money...
It needs a package girl.
But you want to know what
I can be that package girl.
How you want to know what the money is. The money is $5 a package.
No.
Or $10 for a monthly service. Is that the wrong pricing for you?
That's $5 a package is ridiculous.
Too high?
Yes.
Huh? I know, it's a big city,
who
honey.
would pay that? We go crazy just to get free shipping.
All I know is Christmas creates another new business, another new opportunity.
Well, Christmas has, for a very long time, been, as they say in the Christmas Carol, all about retail.
Yeah. Do they? Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I have an obit. Robert K. Massie, I think it even is Robert K. Massie III or something, author, died at age 90. He was the author of Nicholas and Alexandra,
right,
which was this huge book about what happened to the Tsar and his family, and that was very super popular. When was that? In the 1970s.
Well, he
71.
ultimately became the preeminent American scholar with respect to the Tsar's regime and all the events that took place at that time.
Is that really true?
Yes.
Or is it just the preeminent author?
No, he wrote more than one book about it.
All right. Anyway, what's interesting about it, which I already knew, but you reminded me, is that the way he and his wife got interested in Russian history is he was researching hemophilia, because he had a son born with hemophilia, and in aspiring to figure it out how they would help him handle it, he does all this research and he finds out that who was it? Alexei,
yes,
son of Nicholas and Alexandra, had hemophilia, and they sought the help of Grigory Rasputin, the notorious faith-healing monk,
right,
who gained influence over the imperial court.
Who they attribute in part responsibility for the Russian Revolution itself, because people revolted against Rasputin as much as anything else. They didn't like Rasputin.
Rasputin calling the shots.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's kind of interesting. Brushes with greatness, actually, Bob Massie, the son with hemophilia, was 2 years behind me at Princeton. Mm-hmm. And
I remember
you would see him going around.
He was in a wheelchair or something.
No, a golf cart, actually.
Golf cart, all right.
It wasn't unusual for athletes, injured athletes, to have golf carts tooling around campus. And he had one, too, because if he gets injured,
right,
it's,
it couldn't stop
it's a
the
terrible
bleeding.
thing.
Right.
And he could be easily injured. So that's interesting. And I was just actually reading a little bit about him. And he actually by now has had a liver transplant, which cured his hemophilia.
It's kind of amazing.
So that's kind of amazing and exciting. But anyway, so that was Robert Massie.
Yeah.
Passed away.
That's interesting. That's how he became the preeminent Russian scholar, doing that kind of research for his son. Weird.
Before the internet, even.
Yeah. Well, that's why you need a guy like that. All right, so here's something about pain that I think you correctly said. This is a hard article to describe, but it is interesting to me. And the notion, it's called, the pain you feel is real, and it's all in your head. That's why it's treatable. And what they mean by that is this, that people sometimes say, one person might say, I'm in terrible pain, and maybe a doctor or someone else says, I don't know, I think it's in your head. And the answer to that is, yeah, that's where it always is. It's always in your head. All pain is in your head. And what is meant by that is, there is a general understanding, which is conventional wisdom, that's a misunderstanding. Sometimes in the article it's called officially the naive point of view, that whenever you hurt yourself, let's say you hurt your elbow, that the body sends pain signals, that there are pain receptors, and they send pain signals to the brain or whatever, so that you feel the pain in your elbow. And the answer is there are no pain receptors in your elbow. There are no pain signals. What is sent to the brain is a collection of information about everything that's going on in the body. And the brain interprets that, in some cases, to be that something's wrong and there should be pain. And that's an interpretation on the part of the brain.
The pain is just a signal that something is wrong.
Well, the brain,
things are going on.
It's more than that. It's not that the pain is not a signal of anything. The pain is an interpretation on the part of the brain that something is wrong. In other words, as they say in the article, pain is an opinion. The brain forms an opinion that something's going on down there that merits the feeling of pain. So that's what's going on. So it's all in your head.
Yeah.
And the result is that there is some opportunity, at least, for treatment psychologically of situations that elicit pain. But there are limitations on the opportunities in that connection. In other words, you cannot eliminate pain by telling somebody it's all in your head, just don't think about it. Because in the same way you can't tell someone to relax. I know you're nervous, relax, and the person relaxes. This is the way people behave. But what you can do is you can create circumstances and surroundings such that the brain is more relaxed. Whether it's listening to music, whether it's putting you in a safer environment, whether it's
showing you a picture of a loved one,
showing you a picture, all kinds of things.
Yes.
That lower the anxiety level of the brain.
We've known that.
And actually lowers the pain level.
Yeah, we've known that.
What did we know? I didn't know that.
Well, when I was in labor with Zeke, one of the things I did was look at a picture of Granger and Sadie.
You know, you're pulling the labor card out on me. Whenever.
No, but also there's been a lot of talk about.
I didn't even know that.
There's been a lot of talk about how placebo effect is real. The placebo effect in many cases solves a lot of problems.
What they're saying, it's not even placebo effect. It's really directly what's going on. Yeah. But so you're telling me that you were in labor, you had a picture of... I
had a picture with me of Granger and Sadie.
Really?
And when the pain was the worst, I would look at that.
No kidding.
And I would immediately feel a lot better.
And whose advice was that? On whose advice did you have?
I have no idea.
But you didn't have a picture of your husband with you?
No, that might not have the same effect.
Wow. All right. Well, that's consistent with what this theory is here. So it's pain. I like the phrase, pain is an opinion. I love that.
Well, but it doesn't mean that nothing's wrong.
No,
right?
not at all.
Your head is making things up.
No.
Although it sometimes is nothing's wrong.
Right.
Tell that one story.
Well, the story that they have here is that someone's walking along steps on a nail. The nail goes through the sole
and
the top of the shoe, so you can see it. And the person is freaking out and screaming. They give him fentanyl and all kinds of things because he's feeling terrible pain. Yeah. And they take the shoe off, and they realize the nail went between the toes and didn't touch the body. But because the person experiencing it was reacting so strongly to the visual, they felt the pain as if the nail went right through the middle of the foot.
So that's kind of amazing.
It's all in your head here.
Well, the brain is a powerful.
Well, listen, I'm glad I found that article. It's not one of the reasons to hear that story about why you sailed through the labor for Zeke.
Sailed through.
That's the way I remember it.
Yeah. Well, in the Wall Street Journal, actually, there were a couple of articles about movies that are of interest. One was under the heading Masterpiece, and it's celebrating the movie Z, or Zed, of 1969 by Costa Gravras. And that just resonated with me. Not that I like the movie, okay? But I did see the movie.
Yes.
Approximately 50 years ago, as part of a French class field trip. And we went from suburban Maryland to downtown Washington. I'm going to say it was in Georgetown, somewhere. We went out to a charming little bistro.
As one does.
And I had my first little French luncheon. I think it was chicken breast with Dijon mustard or something. Right. And then we went to see this movie. And the movie is a powerful movie about I guess, the murder of a pacifist campaigner. Right. Lambrakis. In Greece, right?
Right, played by Yves Montand. And what
was it? Yves Montand, yeah.
What's tricky about it is it's done in front. Costa Gravras is the director, and it's done in such a way that you're kind of watching it. They don't spell it out entirely clearly to you, so there is doubt as to what exactly went on. And everyone has their own interpretation of what went on because
you have a reporter. He plays a reporter investigating this.
First of all, I didn't see the movie.
Okay.
But, so I can't give you details. But the notion is that in the same way that people bring their own political agenda to interpreting any set of events, you have the same thing going on here. You as the viewer don't get a perfect look, but you have a sense of it, and then you're seeing everything that happens around it.
Right. So it was a powerful movie. It was shut down various places, but every Greek wanted to see it. Really? And anyway, I saw it. Yeah. I don't remember a thing about it, obviously.
I don't know what this is telling us about you.
It didn't resonate at all. I mean, what kind of movie is this to take? It's very high-minded to think a bunch of 15 or 16-year-old girls are going to get something out of it.
It's a fairly sophisticated
my reaction, I think, was, wait a minute. I'm studying French so I can see this, so I can understand this. I had much more romantic ideas about where French was going to get me in life.
Yeah, and you were right. But there you go.
But I will never forget. Odd name, too. Zed? What kind of name is that for a movie?
We were saying before, they later remade it for the U.S. audience, because even this was a challenge for even adults. So they remade it with Jack Lemmon and Sissy Spacek. Make it a little easier. So no one's blaming you.
Then there was another article by Jason Gay, who is sort of a humorist, right?
Yes, I think that's sort of high praise, but yes.
I think you'll last the article.
No, I don't think you need the article.
I don't even think I need it. But the point is, it's an apology to Martin Scorsese, saying that, sorry, Martin, I watched The Irishman this weekend on my phone. Right. And I loved it.
Well, that's not the apology. I loved it. But he said he got a lot out of it, notwithstanding what Scorsese feared, that he couldn't understand it.
And we're chatting last night with Dixon. Dixon said, I watched it on my phone.
Right.
And it was great.
Dixon
one of the things that Jason Gay says, it's a great little snack kind of thing. He could run away from, the festivities of Thanksgiving weekend and just get a little bite of this movie that he was really into.
Right, which is exactly the opposite way that Scorsese conceives of the movie. He conceives of something that you lock yourself in, you bring all your powers of concentration, and you're lost in the film.
And
he's saying, there I am, it's 12 minutes here in the kitchen and 18 minutes in the bedroom. I got my pajamas on before I go to sleep, 10 minutes, which is the same way Dixon described it.
Right. But he says, in all fairness, he's a guy with 4 young kids. If he goes to the movies, it's animated, Right. He is not getting time off to go to 3 hours of something adult and engaging in that sense.
That's right.
That's right. I think it's a call to embrace new technologies.
I think Scorsese should be heartened by that. Not that he's reading that, but I think there's something to that. And again, Dixon loved it too.
Yeah. On the phone.
On the phone. All right, so just to go back to Christmas Carol, I've always loved Christmas Carol, the book. And we enjoyed the musical version last night, and Love Magoo and all that stuff.
But you really love it. You listen to it annually.
Well, I've listened to it annually, but it's the Patrick Stewart reading of it.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not really so much a show, it's just a reading, except he has it memorized. And I wouldn't say so much he plays the parts, but he just used a lot of expression in recounting it. Yeah. And when there's dialogue, he certainly uses different voices and the like. And it's fantastic. And if you get your hands on that, a recording of Patrick Stewart, and it did on Broadway. It is fantastic. But the reason it's fantastic is it's the book. I mean, the truth is Patrick Stewart edited the book a little bit, made it just a little bit shorter, but the book's not that long. It's called a novella, generally speaking, and it's brilliantly written, and it was what cued me into something that I didn't really know and I should have known, is that Dickens was a brilliant author. Quite apart from anything else that's associated with Dickens. And you can get that from a lot of his books. But he's writing it, as we were discussing last night, in a serial form. He's writing for a newspaper. Yeah. He writes 5 pages a week, and he's just letting it go, and boom, boom, boom.
It's like it's like an early TV show or something.
Right.
You see an episode and then can't wait to see the next episode.
Right.
In this case, you're reading.
But he's such a brilliant writer that, whatever versions there are, more power to them. But the book as a singular appeal. Let me just read a couple paragraphs. They're not going to be too amazing. It's very hard to pull anything out. But this is the way he's writing offhanded on the back of an envelope for a cereal once a week. Here it goes.
Right.
Here's
Take a breath.
Yes.
And put yourself in the shoes of Patrick Stewart.
I can't do that.
Oh, well, let's give it a
He's
shot.
got some kind of Scottish accent.
You don't have to do the accent. Just inform it with his...
Here's his description. Here's Dickens' description of Scrooge. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire. Secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. A frosty rime was on his head, and on his eyebrows, and his wiry chin. He carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days and didn't thaw it 1 degree. At Christmas. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. No warmth could warm, no wintry weather chill him. No wind that blew was bitterer than he. No falling snow was more intent upon its purpose. No pelting rain less open to entreaty. Foul weather didn't know where to have him. Nobody ever stopped them in the street to say with gladsome looks, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come to see me?" But what did Scrooge care? It was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance. Well, there you go. That gives you a taste of A Christmas Carol.
Thank you for that.
Okay. And that's all we have today. Until next week.
This is Tamsen Granger.
And Dan Abuhoff.
With Tamsen and Dan read the paper. See you then.